Learning a new language can feel impossible because no matter how many words you try to memorize, you never seem to use them in real conversation or speech, and eventually you forget them. So the problem is that they never seem to stick in your mind. Today, I'm going to share actionable methods that you can implement right away for learning new words and never forgetting them. 2 weeks ago, I made a video sharing my practice routines to enhance my English speaking skills as a content creator. Many of you express your gratitude through comments and messages, and I'm truly grateful for the warm feedback saying that it was truly helpful for your English speaking training. Thus, feeling the need to delve deeper, I'm here with the part 2 of the series to elaborate more on the topic of how to expand your surface word list effectively. In other words, I'll discuss ways to memorize and learn new words to ensure you don't forget them once they're in your system and make them ready to be used in your speech whenever needed. While you may be familiar with some methods in this video, there will be others that you've never heard of. In any case, I'm certain these methods help you learn new words more effectively and enjoyably, and eventually enabling you to express your ideas and thoughts more clearly and fluently. Then without further ado, let's get started. Of course, there are many ways to memorize and acquire more vocabulary and English expressions, but not every method is equally effective. When I was in Korea, there was English as a second language class in school where I learned English grammar and memorized a bunch of words. However, to be frank, those classes didn't really help much because I ended up forgetting almost everything I learned at the time. What happened is that I only stored them in my short-term memory for the exam, and after the exam, they were all gone. Additionally, I tried to memorize words with Korean translated definitions, which was a big mistake, and I'll explain this in more detail shortly. So the goal of the methods I'm about to share is not just to learn the meanings of specific words, but to integrate the words you have learned into your everyday ready-to-use toolboxes so that you can pick them up and use them whenever you need when you speak. After all, learning new words is not just about storing as many words as you can into your short-term memory. It's about reshaping your brain to manifest and express specific meanings and nuances in a new way. So the approach must be proper and slow rather than quick and shallow. The methods of memorizing new words that I am sharing in this video will take a little bit more time to practice, but they certainly help make the words available in your system to be used in your English speech. The first method is to write new words or phrases in your notebook. First of all, I recommend having a small notebook just like this one. It could be a note-taking app on your phone, but personally, I prefer writing in a notebook. Besides, there is a scientific evidence that writing with a pen has a greater effect on memorizing words than typing. These study results suggest that the hand movements involved in handwriting facilitates better memorization of new words. Additionally, handwriting is associated with a more positive emotional state, which enhances the learning process for new vocabulary. Next, choose any YouTube content or TV shows that you will watch repeatedly. It's a good idea to select content you enjoy and find helpful in some way. So, for example, content with topics you want to learn more about will keep you motivated to watch it multiple times. And then have the remote control ready beside you because there will be quite a few pauses while watching. So the next step is, as you encounter any words or phrases that you want to keep in your toolbox, pause the content and write down the entire sentence containing those words or phrases. Then, underline the words or phrases that you want to focus on memorizing. One important tip is that you don't need to write down every single word you find you don't know in the content you're watching. Instead, prioritize those words that you think you've heard it somewhere before, but have not yet made ready to be used freely. So, this is a somewhat debatable point. Do I have to write down every word that I don't know? I guess you have to find a fine balance because you don't want to lose your interest while watching the content by making too many pauses. However, at the same time, I think the process of pausing and writing them down is inevitable when you watch the content for the first time. So hopefully you watch the content multiple times, so once you have followed the methods that I am sharing in this video and studied new words in the content, you won't have to pause the content as often as the first time. So try to focus on capturing so-called deep lexicons first, transitioning them into surface lexicons. Just in case you're not familiar with the terms surface lexicons and deep lexicons, surface lexicons are the words you frequently hear and see so much that these words naturally come to mind when composing sentences. So they are your most actively used words. Beneath the surface lexicons lies what's called the deep lexicons. These are words that one recognizes but are buried deeper because they're not being used as often in your speech. Once you have written down the sentences containing those words and phrases from the content, keep this notebook accessible as much as possible. Bring it upstairs, downstairs, to work, or to a coffee shop, just like you carry your phone everywhere. Then quickly read the sentences written in the notebook every time right before looking at your phone. I recommend taking a moment to review and read the sentences you've written on the notebook at least twice a day. It will only take 2 to 3 minutes while reading the sentences you wrote today or the day before. Which brings us to the second method of learning new words. It involves saying the words or phrases out loud. Practicing saying the words out loud, even if it's just a whisper to yourself, can help dramatically. Hearing the sound of the words helps reinforce them in your memory. However, one more trick that I want to share is to incorporate the mental image of the meaning of the words as you speak them aloud. For example, let's take the word elusive. As you say the word out loud, elusive, imagine trying to hold on to a slippery fish. It's elusive, meaning it's hard to capture, and the fish can also be any sort of difficult concept. So another meaning of the word elusive is that it's hard to grasp in your mind, which means it's difficult to comprehend and understand. Try to visualize the image of slippery fish being hard to catch and the meaning of being hard to grasp as you say the word elusive over and over again. This is a great way to really connect the meaning and nuances of the words to the sound of the words. Moreover, by doing the exercise, the emotional aspects the words carry as you visualize what they mean also help memorize the words easily and effectively. If I want to learn the word impenetrable, visualize the thick, cold metal wall. It is impenetrable, which means it is impossible to pass through. Another meaning of the word impenetrable is that it's impossible to understand, because when your mind is like thick and cold metal wall, what you hear will not enter into your mind. As I've been engaged in this exercise, one intriguing thing that I found is that once I learned the new words, every word sounds like the meaning that each word carries. I'm aware that this might sound like an exaggerated observation, but the point that I'm trying to make is this. Once you see the connection between the emotional aspects as you say the word out loud and the meaning of the words, it becomes quite difficult to forget the words even if you try. One more tip. When you do this exercise, avoid relying on translated definition in your mother tongue. Instead, try to associate English definitions of your understanding of the word with the sound you make when spoken. The third method that helps in learning new words is to create your own example sentences using the words or phrases that you have underlined. I mentioned that it is a good practice to write down the whole sentence from the content you're watching rather than only the word, because new words can be memorized more easily in the context of meaning of the whole sentences. But it's even better when the whole sentence is your own creation of using the word you're trying to memorize. Now, try to create 2 or 3 example sentences that can describe your life or anything closely related to you using the words you have underlined. Write them down below the sentences in the notes you have acquired from the content you've watched. This approach is helpful because people tend to retain information better when it relates to their personal stories or experiences. So as you share your story about what happened yesterday or about yourself, these words that you have incorporated into example sentences will naturally come to mind. Let me show you how I create my own example sentences. Here's a word I wanted to memorize from a YouTube video that I watched. Now, I came up with my own example sentence using the word gamut. And also, as you create more example sentences, you'll begin to realize more of the various nuances that the particular words carry. Therefore, this leads to the better memorization of the words. The last method to learn new words is by memorizing the whole sentences. That's right, the whole sentences. This is particularly helpful, especially the beginning stage of learning English. I know it might sound intimidating to memorize multiple entire sentences, but I found it strangely easier to memorize the whole sentences rather than memorizing individual words. That's because memorizing only words lacks a deeper connection to meaning, making them easily forgotten from your mind. However, as you recall what the speaker is trying to express in their sentences in a particular movie scenes or YouTube video, it becomes easier to retain those words in your memory for a longer time frame because it's easier to memorize the meaning and ideas the speaker was trying to convey. Then you can better remember which words they use to convey their meaning. Another reason that this method is remarkably helpful is that in this way, you're not only memorizing the meaning of the word, but also learning how the speaker forms sentences to convey a particular meaning in specific context. You'll notice differences in how native English speakers express the same meaning compared to how it might be expressed in your first language. For example, take a look at this sentence. The audiences want to see that even a good man like yourself can be driven too far sometimes. This is a line from a TV show Fallout. You might be familiar with every word in the sentence, but the question is, would you form a sentence like that if you want to convey the same meaning? I could convey the exact same meaning this way. The audiences want to see that even a good person like yourself can also exhibit bad behaviors. The same meaning, but conveyed differently. This is one of the things you can learn from memorizing the entire sentences, not just unfamiliar words. As you know, learning a new language is not just simply swapping English words into your original sentence in your first language. It's a whole different way of expressing the same meaning. So, as you memorize entire sentences, you can also learn various articulate ways of expressing thoughts and ideas in English. The 4 methods that I've shared in this video were incredibly effective for me, but as you can tell, it takes dedication and time to implement them. I want to advise that you don't set the goal of becoming an articulate English speaker overnight. It certainly takes time, and it's more effective when you enjoy the beauty of learning each word and expression. If you enjoy the process, then you'll happily see progress in each and every day. Even learning 2 or 3 words a day can be transformative. If you properly learn 2 words and keep them in your ready-to-use toolbox, in a year, it accumulates to 730 words, and that's a lot. On average, native speakers of English use around 2,000 to 3,000 words in daily life. So when someone says learning to become like a native speaker is impossible, I can tell you that is not true. Consider getting your English notebook today if possible and try to implement the 4 methods that we have covered. As you continue your learning journey, you'll realize that the destination isn't as distant as you may think. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.